Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Therapy in the Great Outdoors. I'm Laura Park Figueroa, and on this episode, I am doing a live coaching call with Erin Wilke of Treehouse Therapies in Tennessee. On these calls, I purposefully do not ask the person to tell me what they want to talk about before we do the call, because the cool thing about business coaching is that sometimes you don't know where the conversation is going to go and what value is going to come out of that conversation. And I can tell you, we explored a lot of different ways on this call in which you can partner with preschools or forest schools or other school-based settings in your nature-based therapy practice. So I hope you get a lot of ideas, I know you will, from this conversation with Erin Wilke, and let's dive right in. So Erin is here and we are going to talk about whatever she wants to talk about. So this is a live coaching call where I have offered Erin 25 or so minutes to talk about whatever she wants to talk about with me. And we're also going to talk at the end a little bit about her experience inside of the Business Hive, which is my year-long group coaching program for nature-based business owners. So hi, Erin, welcome.
Hi, Laura. Glad to be here.
So tell us really quick, you live in Tennessee.
That's
and
right.
Tell us just briefly about your business, how long you've been in business, name of your business and all of that.
Okay. I am just outside of the Chattanooga area. So I'm in a little town called Signal Mountain. It's about 15, 20 minutes from downtown Chattanooga. I have a small practice. It's called Treehouse Therapy. I started in 2019 and I started just seeing a couple kiddos after school. I actually still am a part-time employee with another company providing school-based therapy. This business was always meant to kind of just parallel that and fill in the times when I couldn't be in schools. So I started running summer camps. These are enrichment camps for kiddos of all abilities. And then I transitioned into individual sessions. Somewhere along the way, I acquired a small clinic space. So I have a clinic space.
Just happened to acquire that along the way. I love it.
It literally kind of fell into my lap. Started with a joint lease with a speech pathologist.
Cool.
And now it's my own space. So yeah, it just has started, the snowball started rolling a few years ago and it just keeps going.
Yeah. And 2019 was not really a great year to start a business, right? Like we didn't know that the pandemic was coming down the pike. So
actually, our lease was signed March of 2020 is when our lease was signed.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a little hairy those first few months.
Yeah. Well, at least I always say, at least we know this likely is one of the most challenging things that businesses will deal with, right? So if we've weathered this, we have great potential for weathering any storm that comes in the future, right? Because whoever wrote that, they do those when you're doing a business plan, a lot of times they do the SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I'm like, I don't think anyone ever wrote down global pandemic under possible threat. Like we just don't even think of it until it has happened now. So we can weather any storm now. It's made us very resilient business owners, I think. So, okay. So tell me, how can I help you today? Tell me what you want to talk about. Tell me what's on your mind about your business.
So I am really looking to move, into increasing my hours in my own private practice. I've been kind of slowly decreasing my school hours so I can spend more time on my own business.
Yep.
And my concern is always filling the daytime hours. Yeah. We work with kids. We work with parents that have kids in school all day and they're looking for after school hours. They're looking for weekend hours. And I have 3 of my own kids that are also real busy in after school activities. So that's just constantly my biggest struggle is how to fill those daytime hours.
So do you have any ideas right now? Like, your area, and I know you've done some work with preschools just from our work together in the past. I know you've mentioned you've done some presentations. So tell me what you're thinking about, and then let's talk about that.
So I really wanted to dive into this. It was really my focus in August. This school year, I really want to kind of work on this and see what I can do. So I'm very thankful that we're in an area that has quite a few forest schools. And I thought, gosh, nature OT here. I mean, what more, how can we be more compatible with a forest school? So I got in touch with all of, there are three big ones. One of them has 4 campuses. So, and then, and then there's some little small kind of, mom and pop ones popping up here and there. So I've been in touch with directors of the 4 schools, and I initially started out with an email and just kind of out of the blue, here's who I am. I introduced myself, just sort of feeling them out for what, I would love to have some sort of a collaboration with you all. How can I help you? One of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I had a great response from all of them. I mean, in that they replied back.
Yeah.
And they seemed, excited about learning about me and what it is I do. So then that kind of, slowly then it came to be where I was able to provide a in-service workshop. And there were about 10 to 12 local forest school. So actually I was working with one forest school, but she put it out there, her connections with all of the forest schools.
The others.
Yeah. And kind of offered this as an in-service.
That's great.
And we had about 12 people come, which was great. I thought it went really well.
That's a wonderful turnout to reach that many forest school educators in one in-service that you do. That's a wonderful turnout. That's great.
Yeah.
What's the benefit been to your business? Have you seen any yet?
Right. So I did just have an evaluation for a child that was referred by one of the forest schools. So that was exciting to see that. And then actually just today, a couple hours ago, I had an email from the director of the forest school that has 4 campuses. And she would like me to come and specifically do that same in-service for her community of teachers. And she said there could be about 30 people there.
Great. That's a lot. If they have 4 campuses, what if your practice becomes the provider of OT for any child that needs OT on their campuses?
That's the direction I want to go. That's what really excites me. So it's just kind of making that leap from here, I'm providing an in-service to now let's talk and that next step and how to approach that with them. That's that part of
right. I think I know what you mean. It's kind of, tell me if I'm wrong, if I'm assuming that this is how you're feeling, but there's this step of like, you were doing this kind of as like a service to them, right? Because you're wanting to get the word out about your business, and you didn't get paid, correct? You did it
intentionally.
Intentionally just did it to serve them, which I think is great when you're first starting out, but at some point you have to start getting paid, right? And that's where it gets kind of like, it's like, okay, who's paying for what and how are we going to do this? Right. So I think maybe it would be good for us to talk through the system or like the flow of how are you going to actually get paying clients from this, and how can we, I'm totally just thinking off the top of my head right now. Let's think through the system of how that would work, right? Like what's kind of the flow of like you actually getting a client from these schools. Now you said that you have an eval. So talk to me about what that process was like. Like, how did you get that eval? How did that unfold?
So it was a student that's attending one of the forest schools. And he's having behavioral concerns. Actually, I think his attendance at the forest school has been paused. Until they kind of get things under control. So he's not actually attending the forest school right now. So he did come into my clinic. It wasn't like it was an evaluation at their school. He was coming into my clinic, and that's probably what will happen until he can go back into his forest school setting. And then I would love for OT to transition to that setting with him.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have the benefit of having an indoor space and an outdoor space. Because and that is really beneficial, because in my research that I did, one of the things that kind of came up, they told me I was like being biased in the way I presented some results. And I was like, you're totally right. I was biased in the way I presented some results. Not, I haven't published it, but like when I was talking to my committee about it, the other professors, one of the things when I really went back and looked at the data was that the outdoor environment is just not ideal for some kids. Like that's the reality, right? Like we have to, as therapists, be thinking about where's the best place to assess this kid or to treat this child for the needs that they have as an individual. And so it's like, not like, we can just say that like, it's fine, you're going to assess everyone outdoors. So you have the benefit of really really being able to do that. So he's kind of a different case though than what I was thinking of, right? Because you want to be able to go to the forest school and see the kids for therapy, almost like a school-based therapist, but you're at a forest school.
Yeah.
So these schools, I'm assuming that we are thinking that the parents would be paying for the therapy.
Yes.
Right.
That's what I would think. Yeah.
Yeah. Because a school generally doesn't have extra finances to be able to do that. Schools do, just as an aside, schools do often have money. And this is what I was paid to do. This was years ago. I haven't done it since because I've just been too busy. But years ago, a forest school did pay me to come in and do like a parent in service. So they paid me for my time, and I came in and did like a 1-hour thing at one of their PTA meetings, essentially for the forest school, right? And talked with the parents about strategies they could use. And that did actually get me like the parent that was there that had a child who needed OT. It ended up hiring me to come in and see that kid at their forest school for like a semester. I think I saw him. So I think a lot of times we think that forest schools know everything already. You know, we think, well, they're doing fine. They know everything. But man, you go in and you actually notice things that like they're not thinking of. They don't have a therapist's brain, right? So we will definitely see things that the forest school teachers will not. So I think there might be other revenue producing activities you could do with forest schools that are like, maybe you do an in-service for parents, and maybe parents pay a small fee. Maybe they pay like $10 to come or something, but that could be another partnership thing, right? Like where you might be able to get some, I guess that doesn't fill daytime hours. I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but it is, I'm just thinking about partnerships with the schools and how can you generate revenue in your business from those kind of partnerships. So that might be another way to do it. So if these teachers know about you, what do you feel like, talk through like what the process would need to be for you to bring a kid in? Like, let's think about like just maybe not the kid that you have, because he's a unique one, like he's coming to your clinic, but what do you feel like the process would be like?
Well, I know in some other just public preschools in general, I've done screenings.
Okay.
So I think that would be a great place to start offering. And the way that's happened in the past with these regular preschools is I've provided the information, like the handouts that they send home with all the kiddos. So every kiddo in the school gets this little paper that says, hey, we have an OT providing developmental motor screenings.
Yep.
If you'd like to sign up your child, here's the information or whatnot.
Right.
So I think that would be a great place to start, because then it's letting parents know, here I am, letting them know a little bit what I do, and then might be able to identify some kiddos that could benefit from services from that.
I think that's wonderful. That's a great idea. And I think parents would feel like that is providing, it's kind of like, I call it like service-based marketing. Basically, like you're serving and educating for free, right? And then if people need you, they're going to buy your service. So I think that's a great marketing strategy to offer that free service.
Now, actually, I will say,
I was going to say, did you charge for it?
I charged for it.
Because that was the next thing out of my mouth. Actually, you could charge for that, a small fee. Like,
and I just charged $20 a screen. And I really don't think that amount deterred anyone away from it.
Yeah.
But it might have deterred parents that feel like their child has no problem whatsoever. You know, they don't have any concerns with their child.
Right.
I also don't want to like waste my time on kiddos that, you know, parents don't have any concern at all and wouldn't be interested in the service.
Yep. I think that's brilliant. A small fee and then it kind of screens out the people that would just say, sure, I'll take a free screening. Yeah. Exactly. So you're one step ahead of me on that one. I was like, the next thing out of my mouth was gonna be like, wait a second, you could charge for that. You're like, no, Laura, I already am. Thank you. Didn't need you to tell me that. No. So what's the process after the free screening happens?
Okay. So
how does that unfold?
I don't know, because in the past, when I've done the free screens, you know, usually the kids, I'm giving them a, you know, check, everything looks good. You know, there hasn't been a lot of kids that have come up with concerns. Now, I hypothesize that in the forest school, there's going to be more kiddos that might pop up as a concern, because I think just the nature of parents bringing their kids to forest school, you know, these are kids that might not do as well behind four walls. So I think that it might pop up more, and it just might be more obvious that kiddos could benefit from certain things that we could offer. So then I guess a part of that screening process could be, here's things I saw, here's some things, I noticed, I have kind of a checkoff form, but then I add kind of a summary to that. And then I guess the idea would be, here's some things I noticed, and I might recommend a full evaluation based on what I saw on the screen. And then it would be up to the parents then to decide if they wanted to do the full evaluation.
Yeah. So in the past, when you've done this at preschools, have you gotten clients this way?
I have not in the moment, but I
Okay.
will say a year later, I've had a parent call me and
Interesting.
say, hey, you screened my child, or maybe it was even 2 years later.
Yeah.
You screened my child, but my name was in their head.
Yes.
When they got into kindergarten and then they were struggling again,
Yeah.
then the parent thought, oh, wait, I remember we had that screen.
Yep. So that's a great example of how the long-term effects of doing something like this, like you feel like maybe you're not making a lot of money in the moment because $20 you're not making, you weren't making enough to pay yourself really like a therapist for your time, right? It was a little bit, but I do think that the long-term positive benefit that it has to your business, right? Because your name is top of mind. The name of your business is top of mind. And if they had a positive experience and felt like they got good information from that, then that's just positive mojo in the community about you, right? Like,
right.
So, okay. So you got a client further down the line. I think doing the screens is a great idea. I also think maybe there's sometimes, maybe not in your area. I don't know. It kind of depends on the area, but sometimes there's a disconnect between what families know about OT and what they know we can do for them. Mm-hmm. So I almost think doing those screenings could be a good thing to pair with doing an in-service for families and showing what OT actually, where you have a little bit more time to talk to them than just here's a form. Okay. Yes, your kid's good. Or no, I'd recommend a little bit more screening, because I think sometimes we need to actually show families the value of what OT has to offer. Right. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, I think if you want to go this route and have, I'm thinking about school-based practice, right? Like you're familiar with it too, right? The person who's referring the kid in school-based practice is often the teacher, right? Like not necessarily the parent. And so I wonder if there's some way, maybe you already did this, like in your in-service for teachers, did you talk to them about what to look for to refer a child for OT?
A little bit. I didn't want to make it too much about that.
Yeah.
But I think this next time around, I will kind of recap at the end. And here's the things you can really look for. Yeah.
Or a checklist for them, leave them with a physical checklist, something that they could check off and say, if there's 3 or more concerns on this list, you probably should reach out to an OT.
That's a really good idea. Teachers like that.
Yeah, well, because it's hard for them to remember everything, I think, in their brain, when we tell them, because as OTs, at least, we do so much, right? I feel like for PT or speech, it's a little bit easier, it's kind of like motor skills or like speech and language and, receptive and expressive language. It's kind of more clear, but for OT, it's just so broad. There's so many different things we can work on, and different therapists use different approaches and work with different kinds of kids. So I think it would be really great to just give them a checklist of these are the type of things that I work on. Like if the child has these concerns, reach out to me for a screening. Now that's where we get into the process, right? Who's paying for that screening? Is the parent going to pay for a screening? Maybe you do a screening that's like an individualized visit, right? And it costs a flat rate of money, but it's not necessarily an assessment yet. I'm thinking getting parents kind of saying yes in small increments rather than here's several $100s for an assessment.
Right.
So maybe you go and you do a half-hour visit to the school at a time when the child has the most challenges. So you're kind of doing a mini assessment essentially, but it's a screening to determine if further assessment is necessary, maybe, which could cost a little bit less money maybe for families. And then, moving into the recommending of a full assessment if the child warrants that, or I don't know. It's hard because sometimes until you actually are starting to do these things, you can't develop the system.
Yeah.
Right? You might try to go there and be like, this screening thing is not working. I'm making no money on this or whatever. And then you change to have to do something else. But the main thing I would encourage you is to think about getting paid for your time when you are doing these things, right? So if you do offer an individualized screen, not like a group screen, kind of how you were doing, the parent needs to pay for that, right? And maybe there's some information that you could give them to say, if you want me to do this, and then here's what happens, right? These are my rates for a full assessment. This is my rate for a consult call. This is my rate for ongoing visits, so that they at least have an idea. Or maybe if you use package pricing, you tell them what your packages are. Like, this is how I run my services. If you we start every semester, every quarter, and everybody gets 10 visits and consult calls every month or whatever. However you have your business structured, then the family, if you were going to do that kind of individualized screening method or whatever, where you go out to actually put eyes on the kid after a teacher refers, then the parents would have that information and be ready for the financial layout of money before you actually physically go to the school. Because I think our hesitancy as therapists around money is often that we feel like parents might be like surprised that we're expensive, quote unquote, right? So the more you can tell them upfront, like, this is how much it costs, then you are not wasting your time going out to do an individualized screening to see if you should do or even an assessment. And then the family is like, oh no, well, we can't, that's crazy expensive, we can't do that or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. Does any of that kind of make sense? Or what do you think? Like,
yeah, it does. And actually, the way I've done it in the past has been pretty time efficient, because I've coordinated with the preschool. I'm going to be there on this specific day, you know, all morning. And that's when I do my screenings. So on the handout that we give to parents ahead of time, I will be at the school on this date. I'm actually there at the school to do hopefully all of them, or
yes,
I don't know, however many there are going to be.
Right.
So it's not like I'm traveling out there just for one kiddo. You know, hopefully I'm getting the bulk of them done together. And, you know, I mean, they're individual, yes, but they're back to back in one day.
Right.
So that's how I picture it. Maybe
I think that is very effective for if you're using the screening as a marketing service, essentially.
Okay. Yeah.
What I was speaking about is more if the teacher refers a kid. Like, let's say you have a forest school teacher who's like, wow, I don't know why I always say Johnny. That's the name I go to. It's very like a common name from my childhood. And so I remember it. But so, you know, Johnny's really struggling. And then you're kind of talking to the teacher like, okay, have you talked with the family? Well, the family needs to have information before you're going to go out and take a look at Johnny, right? Like you can't go out to see him before the family says that it's okay to. But I think the family needs information about your services before you physically go out and take a look at him, even if you're going to do that first step of like I was using the word individualized screen as more like you're kind of doing you're laying eyes on the child in order to determine if a full assessment is necessary.
Okay.
And that should be paid, right? So it could be that your system is like, maybe you call it an observation visit or something. That might be a better word than screen, an observation visit. So you do that, and that's going to cost the family, I don't know what rates are in your area for ease of math, let's say $100, right? For you to go out and do a visit. Maybe that's 45 minutes or so. And you talk with the teachers while you're there and you observe a little bit. So observation visit is first, and that's like first step in your system, right? Like teacher refers, and then it's like observation visit, or teacher refers. And then the next step is families are sent information about services. Families give okay for observation visit. Then you do the observation visit. Families pay for observation visit. Then you do the observation visit. So you can see how there's like layers, right? In a system, right? To figure out like, how is this going to flow, to actually like make this where teachers can refer kids, but parents can still have the information they need to be able to access your services. So once you do that observation visit, and again, you don't have to do this. I'm just thinking out loud with this, but
no, I like this. I hadn't thought of this before.
Yeah. So like observation visit. And then after that, the next step would be parent email follow-up or something. Or maybe you have similar to what you do for screening. Maybe there's just like a quick, it's not a formal, because you didn't assess, right? You're just observing the child and determining if assessment is necessary. So it could even just be therapist sends email to family with recommendations. Like, here's what I recommend. We're going to do a full assessment, or I recommend we do a 1-hour consult call at a rate of $100. and you can schedule that here, and here's the link or whatever. So there's kind of like at that step of the observation visit, you would have probably like different pathways you could go down when you draw out your system of like, is an eval needed? No. Send email to family. Thank you very much. Your child is okay. I made these 2 recommendations to the teacher. Check back in if you need me, like, is an evaluation needed? Yes. Then another part of the system, like send email to family, get payment, send the link to schedule, whatever that may be. Okay. The more you can automate this, the better. The less time for your therapist, right? Like, so especially, and for you, because you're doing a lot right now. Like you're like working in schools, running your clinic, running your nature-based stuff in the summers. Like, so the more that you can automate, the better. Even if it is just a email, maybe you have a template email that you use, or maybe there's a checklist that you use that you snap a photo of and send to them, like your handwritten comments, but you send them a PDF of that or something like that, like where it's as much as you can automate it and like get it down to like, what is the outcome for that family? What does that family want? Like, they don't need a 3-page written report from an observation visit, right? They just want to know what to do next. Yeah. And so maybe it is just a simple feedback form that you give them that tells them what you would recommend next. Yeah. But they have the information about your services beforehand, so they know that they might be having to pay for a full assessment coming down the road. So you're not feeling like bad about telling them. We all have our issues around money, like, so you're not feeling bad saying like, hey, I do recommend a full assessment. There's plenty that we could look at here with some formal assessment. So, and
then would you charge the full assessment price? Or would you take off anything from that based on observation might be part of a full assessment?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea, though. I think that's interesting because you could tell families that you will credit them, that money will count towards their assessment. But the thing I would say again is making sure that you can make money still. Yeah. Right. So as long as you're still factoring in the cost of that observation visit into your assessment and pricing your assessment accordingly, that you're not just kind of not making money on that observation visit. But some therapists would say, and this is a business principle, right? It's like, how much money does it cost to get a client? Mm-hmm. And if you're gonna spend $100, right, to get the client because you spent that time, talking to the teachers and going out to the school, or maybe it might actually be more. It might be more like 2 hours of your time. So let's say $200, mm-hmm. and 100 is low for a therapist, but it's just easy math, right? So let's say you spend, my husband is going to get my son from school. I thought I was supposed to do that. So I can just stay on this call for a long time, Erin. I just see him driving down the road.
I can come up with more problems.
Yeah, he's being nice to me this week because he knows I'm like so overloaded. He's like, I'll take him to school so you can sleep in the morning. I'm like, you're the best. I love you today, So anyway, yeah, he's been great this week. So I digress. What was I saying? I got distracted that I didn't have to leave because I was like trying to think about wrapping up. And then I was like, oh, wait, I can keep talking about this. So what were we talking about? Get me back on topic.
The assessment and whether you take kind of credit.
Yes, the cost, right? The cost to obtain a client. Yeah. If that client is going to be a long-term client, if they are a client who is going to stay with you for a year and pay for weekly therapy for a year, and that's worth, let's say they come for 30 sessions at $100 a session, is $3,000. Like, is it worth it to spend 100 or 200 upfront to get that client? Maybe it is. Yeah. So I would just encourage you to think about it that way. Like decide what you want to do in your business. And if you want to give away a little bit of free service upfront in order to gain a long-term client, I think that might be a fine business strategy. It's just you have to monitor it and you have to make sure that it's worth it, right? Like if you're doing a lot of those screenings and not screenings, we're calling them, what were we calling them? Like observational visit or something. So if you're doing a lot of those visits where you're actually going for that one child and looking and talking to the teacher, it's really like a consult, right? Like maybe you call it that. Maybe you call it a consult visit to start off before you would determine if an assessment is necessary. If you're doing a lot of those and they're not turning into long-term clients, your business will be losing money.
Yeah.
because you're really, like I said, I wouldn't encourage you to price it like super high, right? You don't want to prevent families from opting into it, but it should be like, wow, an OT will come and look at our child and give us a little bit of feedback for X amount of dollars, like $100. Well, that's worth it to us to know kind of what's going on because he's having so many challenges. And so the problem though is if those don't turn into clients and maybe you're doing one follow-up visit where it's $100 and then you've only made $200, but you've really spent time driving there and planning and like all the stuff that you're not paid for, then your business quickly begins to lose money doing these and you can't sustain it, you know? So
Yeah.
you got to make sure that you're still making money. So you could decide to give them credit for that visit, or that could just be like the first step in the process that you have to do, right? Like it's just required for our business that this is how we do it. Don't ever be afraid to like make things how you know would work best for your business and serve families well, even if you feel like it's going to make people like, well, why do we have to do it this way? You know, like I think people actually want us to be professionals and want us to say, like, this is how we're going to do it. Think about if you call, I always use the example of a lawyer, right? Like you call a lawyer and you want advice from them, right? Like most of us don't understand legal stuff. Okay. And you call a lawyer and if they're like, well, we could do it, you know, if you want to do a consult, you could, or you could come in and visit me and I could do that. Or I could, you know, maybe I could just email you and I could charge you for the time that I email you. Or, you know, they just have all these different ways. Like you can't, you want them to just say, this is how much it is per hour. This is how we're going to do business together. And so I think as therapists, we shy away. I do this too. It's not I'm not saying you do this. I'm saying we as therapists, we struggle with like really being business-like and just saying, this is the way we do business. This is our method of doing business. And so you can really make it however you want. You could make it that you don't get on the phone with anyone until they fill out a form or whatever it is that, you know, you want to create in your systems. So this is a good one.
I like that. So yeah, that whole concept that you talked about, that's really a funnel, right? You're kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way. I mean, typically funnels are the word funnel is used like in online business to be like, how do you reach like a wide number of people and narrow it down to someone until at the bottom of the funnel they buy, right? Like so you're kind of, but it could be a proper use of the word funnel to say like you're serving a wide number of kids with some of these strategies that we've talked about. You're serving a wide number of people, right? And then you're looking for the people who really need your help and then showing them how they can get like basically one-on-one access to you, you know, how they can get really intensive and supportive help from an OT, but you're casting the net really wide to help a wide variety of people. Yeah, this went all kind of directions from filling daytime hours, but I hope it was useful to you to think through like and for anyone who's listening to think through like a lot of times I think we think it's just really simple. We'll just partner with 4 schools and it'll be great. But you have to think through all of these little logistics about how like the end client actually perceives your service and actually will give you money for the service. Like the ultimate goal is that in a business is that you're getting money from someone to provide a service, right? Or a product, but for most of us, it's services that would be listening to this. So we have to think about like, who's going to be paying for it and how can we meet their needs? And what does the referral process look like? And at what point in the process does the money actually get handed over, right? So I would never think that you should go out to a forest school to individually see a child, whether we call that observation or first step in the assessment, or we're looking at a consult or whatever we call it. If you're going to go out and lay eyes on a kid as an OT, obviously you have to have parent permission first, but also you should be paid for that. If that's not a general kind of supporting the school kind of thing, or looking at groups of kids, kind of how you were before, where it's like people have opted in like, yes, I'll have my kid do a screening. I'm coming and I'm doing like 6 of these, you know, or whatever. If you're going out for one specific kid, you have to be paid for that. That's really starting down the assessment process, I feel like, in some way. But I was just trying to think through how to make it more baby steps for families than like, hi, your forest school teacher recommended maybe I take a look at him, and it's going to be what do you charge for assessments?
Well, 225.
225. Okay, so it's not so bad. You don't charge a large amount for assessments.
Yeah.
Some businesses charge a lot of money for OT assessments. So I think you should charge more personally, but that's a whole other coaching call we can do later, Erin. But it does. I'm not someone, I mean, you've heard me before. Like, I'm not someone who says like everybody should charge $1 million for therapy, because there are different areas that require different pricing structures for therapy. I mean, I'm not gonna, when I start here in Madison, Wisconsin, where I live now, I am not going to be charging what I was charging in the Bay Area of California, where it's the most expensive place in the country to live, right? So my cost will be different here. And so my prices that I charge for services will be different here, much lower, like more than 50% lower. Like, that is based on the research that I've done. I mean, it's significant. So I think, price for your area, but 225 for an eval is a steal. Are you I got to go down this route. Okay. What does that include? I know we're way over time, but I'm like, I have to hear this.
Usually, they usually take anywhere between an hour to an hour and a half.
Okay.
Most kiddos, I'm doing like a sensory questionnaire. I use this SPN2 and the brief, and executive functioning.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
Use that. And then sometimes that's it. Sometimes then the rest of it's just observational. I do have a couple other assessments I might throw in there, but I'm not one of those that let's do the Peabody, let's do the BOT2, I'm kind of really about functional assessments. And
yeah, that's interesting. That's the conclusion we came to too in my practice, that we weren't going to do motor. We don't do standardized motor assessments in my nature-based practice, because my therapists were like, we can get that information. We can watch the child and see, because they're skilled therapists, right? Like, sometimes if you're a newbie, brand new therapist, you need that assessment to be like, okay, I need to know if this child actually has a delay or not. Or if if you're billing insurance, that is something else where you might need to do like a certain standardized assessment for certain things. But that makes sense. So you've kind of streamlined your assessment process. I think this will be really helpful for people to hear too, that listen to this, that you've streamlined your assessment process to keep the cost of assessment low enough that it might get people in the door. And that is another strategy. Like, I think that's a wise business strategy in some ways, because sometimes the cost of assessment alone can kind of turn people away when it's really, really high, right? And then what do you charge ongoing for sessions?
You can get mad at me.
Tell me it's 100. 90?
It's 100. It's 100.
Okay.
It's 100.
Okay. For an hour, for 50 minutes, what are you?
For an hour. Well, 55 minutes.
Yeah.
And like the 5-minute recap, But no.
So that's a strategy too. I've talked to people about, is charge 100 for a visit, right? But actually write on your website that it is a 45-minute visit with 10 minutes for recap with the family or whatever, so that then the session actually is 45 minutes long, but the child is still there, but you have that time at the end to talk to the family, so that you're not like running over into your next session, because when you go to the very last minute, it's just again, like setting the expectation for families so that they have a clear idea of what to expect. But anyway, that's about what I've been told I could charge in Madison. And I've actually
be similar, maybe Tennessee and Wisconsin. I would think the cost of living is probably similar.
Yeah. I actually had someone tell me that they see a PT and this was like a PT for adults. They go to someone, it was an adult who told me they go to someone who does like sports rehab. And if you buy a package, it's about $80 a visit. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so low. Like, by the time you take taxes out of that and take business expenses out of that, like, you're really not making a lot of money. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to be charging that low. I won't go below 100 for certain. But yeah, I think every place that people live as business owners is just going to have different pricing structures, I think. So I won't like yell at you on that one. You can slowly increase it over time too, as you become busier, and that, that'll like allow you to kind of slowly increase over time. And as long as you're profitable, I think you can charge whatever you want, wherever you live, whatever's appropriate for where you live. So, okay. Lots here on this call too. I glanced up here and the recording thing wasn't showing. I was like, oh no, did we forget to record? No, we are. We're still recording. That's good. Yeah, go
I was
ahead.
going to insert one thing for anyone that might be listening to this, if ever in
Yeah.
the future. And this is just a suggestion. Like, don't be afraid. I was so scared to send those emails out in
Mm,
September to those forest schools. I was terrified, and I didn't know. I mean, I sat there like about ready to hit send. I was so nervous about it. I felt like I don't really know what's going to come from this. Am I ready for this?
yeah.
But here it is, January. It's what, 7 months later, and things are just kind of slowly coming from it. I mean, it takes a
Hmm.
while to form those relationships and
Yeah.
that know, like, and trust. And so, like, don't be afraid to just throw yourself out there, introduce yourself. It might take 6 months before something comes from it, but I'm
Yes.
glad I started it then, and I'm not expecting something to happen quickly. I mean, this has been kind of perfect the way it's just slowly built some
Yeah.
momentum.
That's such good advice because I have had the same with I had a great response to a school that I sent an email to, but it's just been very slow because
Yeah.
OT is not their top priority until it is,
Hmm.
until there is the child that really needs the services. And so I think that's great advice to people, just like thinking about taking the long road, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that these are relationships that you're building to build your business over time and not like expecting that like right away they're going to be profitable sources of revenue for your business to have a bunch of kids during the day so that you can hire a full-time employee or whatever. Like, and just taking the long road and building it slowly. I remember, I feel like you talked about that. This will like segue into talking about the Hive because I feel like you shared on one of our coaching calls about it. And we
Hmm.
were all like, Erin, go. Like, that is so awesome. Cause you were like, I sent an email. Like,
Yeah, it was.
so yeah, talk a little bit about that. Like how was the Hive supportive to you in that?
Oh, well, it was 100% because of the Hive that I did that.
Good. That's good to know.
100%. Yeah. Oh gosh, no, that support that I got from the Hive and from the connection between the other people in it, and from the coaching from you, and oh, absolutely, that I mean, I felt like I would leave those calls with like, okay, here's my to-do list. I mean,
Hmm.
maybe just one thing, but here's one thing I'm going to do.
Yep.
And that was the week before. That was my one thing. I'm going to send an email out to forest schools. And
Yeah.
that was, I'd written it down, and then I was able to come back, and that was my success for the week. And it felt big, felt really
Yeah.
big.
Yeah. And it is big. I mean, it is big to have like put yourself out there and reached out to people that you don't know. You don't know how they're going to respond. And
Right.
then so you talked about like it was totally because of the Hive. It's interesting because I feel like a benefit of the Hive is like the accountability of those weekly
Oh,
calls. Like
absolutely.
like when you say that you're going to do something, right, the week before, and then you know that you're going to show up on the call the next week
Yeah.
and know that you are going to be asked again like, "Hey, what were your wins this week? What did you what did you do in
Yeah.
your business? What's going on?" And you got to come and like celebrate like that. That's just like that was really cool. I remember it. I remember
Yeah.
we were all so excited for you. So tell me a little bit about and people that are listening, because I want people to kind of get a feel for what the Hive is like and like why people should join. Like, why did you join?
Well, when you'd put the information out about the Hive, and I started kind of exploring and seeing what
Hmm.
all the components of it. And I was really impressed actually with like the paperwork that you had available on there, and the
Oh
form,
yeah.
and like the
Yeah.
intake stuff, and all that stuff that takes me so long to create and
Hmm.
absolutely draining to my soul.
Yeah.
You had so much of that available on there, and treatment plans and camp plans, and not only
Hmm.
just the business side of the paperwork, but then the whole therapeutic side and activities and things like that. And all of that's kind of like already done for you, things that where you can just use it and change your name out and
Yeah.
tweak it, make it your own. But
Yeah.
where the I mean, that to me is just endless hours that was saved. So that
Yeah.
initially, I mean, I know that the people and because I've been in some of your programs before, so I know
Uh-huh.
the accountability piece with the people is huge. But for this particular, it was probably that the forms and the paperwork and all that was available that initially made me think, okay, I'm gonna be a part of this Hive.
Yeah, because it can be like it's a year-long program, right?
Yeah.
So it's a significant layout of money, even though it's small bits of money over the course of the year. Like you can pay up front if people want to, if they have like money sitting in their business bank account or something. So I think sometimes it can be hard for people to like commit to something for that long.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, like, you have been so impressive. Like, you've shown up on so many of the calls, you've been going to the work sessions. And I think that's why you're making traction and like taking these steps in your business, like reaching out to your community and feeling emboldened to do things that maybe you'd feel scared if you were by yourself. I mean, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth. I don't mean to. I would feel scared by myself. I love the community too, but
a lot of that's the financial piece. When I'm putting money into something and, what feels like a chunk of change, I want to get the maximal benefit out of it. So that's a push right there. It's like, I've invested in this and now I need to get everything I absolutely can from it. I can't imagine not having been a part of it because it's already been so huge for me in just the past 6 months.
Yeah. You still got 6 months to go. Let's see what you do. I'm so glad you brought that up though, about putting money down actually forces you to be committed.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Because I think a lot of times we don't think about that. Like it's actually a way to hold yourself accountable is to join a longer term program so that you are committed and that you have to show up and do the work. Because that's how you get results from things. So who would you say, last question really quick, who would you say that should join the Business Hive? Like, who is it good for? What type of business owner?
I really think it's good for, so many different stages because I probably am not, there's a lot of people on there that are a little bit newer maybe into their business. And I think it's immensely beneficial for them. I'm perfect for it. I think I'm perfect for it because I had some of that foundation. And then now I'm just kind of building on the foundation and I'm, trying to grow. And I feel like it's perfect for that. I feel like I'm kind of right in the middle. And then there's the group, that's way more advanced in their business and they're, helping feed into some of us. I don't know. I really think it could be beneficial for anyone.
Yeah. So it's so good for me to hear because I think in the future, what I will end up doing once it grows more, and if we ever get to a place where there's more than, I'd say like maybe 30 people in the group, I think we will end up doing kind of like stages of business calls. Like maybe like my business bedrocks curriculum is in there and that's kind of good for early and middle stage of business, like getting your systems set up. So maybe there will be calls for like start kind of calls where it's start and then grow calls for people who are managing teams or hiring employees and stuff like that. So, and I still have to think about, I have not decided like what I'm doing after people finish their year. It's like, well, what if they want to come back if we do grow calls again? Like, do they get like, I'm never going to raise the price on people. I'm adamant about that in my businesses. Like, I feel like if people purchase something early, they should get the benefit of that early price forever. So I'm never going to raise the price. And in fact, I might even do like alumni pricing where it's like a lower monthly rate or something if you just want to come to calls and get access to the resources. But this is a good example of how like as your business grows, you have to like create new systems. Like I need to create a system before July for what to do with people that have been in the Hive for a year. Like what are we going to offer? What's the next stage for you all? Like, and maybe it's a year-long program and you're done, but maybe also you want to cycle back in when you're hiring employees and growing a team. And maybe there's resources inside the Hive that are appropriate for that. So I don't know. It'll be like all things in nature, changing all the time.
Yeah.
So thank you, Erin. This was so great to talk with you and like to kind of just think through. I hope you got benefit from it. I feel like we just kind of brainstormed together.
No, I love that. No, I got a lot of benefit from it. Yeah, I have. There's definitely some significant things I had not thought of before. So it was really helpful to kind of talk through it and process through it. So I really appreciate it.
Good. Well, thanks for being willing. And I will see you on our weekly calls, which are starting in 2 weeks.
I'll be there. Thanks, Laura.
Bye. Thanks so much for joining us today for Therapy in the Great Outdoors. If you can't get enough, if you just want even more information about nature-based pediatric practice, head on over to therapyinthegreatoutdoors.com. At that website, you can join our free community, Therapy in the Great Outdoors, that has loads of resources for you to support your nature-based work with children, as well as a free ebook that I wrote called the Nature-Based Practice Roadmap. It is a guide to help you focus and avoid costly mistakes, which I might have made myself, as you start or grow your nature-based pediatric practice. On the website, you can also join the waitlist for the Contigo Approach online course. Contigo stands for Connection and Transformation in the Great Outdoors. This course will teach you everything you need to know to become an expert in nature-based pediatric therapy. To my knowledge, it is the only evidence-based, operationalized framework for pediatric nature-based therapy. And what that means is that when you take the Contigo Approach course, you will have a shared mental model for yourself, your clients, and your team. And this is how you grow a business, by having a framework that you use in your business that helps kind of anchor everyone to what is going on here and what are we doing. You'll learn about the research-based and theoretical foundations of nature-based practice and loads of practical how-tos about nature-based practice. How can you do nature-based practice in alignment with the evidence in order to get the best results for your clients? So a lot of times when people start out in nature-based work, I think they're DIYing it, which is fine. We learn a lot by DIYing things. However, you're not often sure if you're doing things correctly. And that means you could be making mistakes that could be costing you valuable time with families and children and getting them the outcomes that they really want from your session. DIYing also costs you personally valuable time and money as you are getting started in nature-based work. And this course can save you all of that time and money. This course also includes lifetime access, including any updates we make, and ongoing mentoring for years to come on our mentoring calls that we offer with the online course. So truly gives you everything you need to become an expert. I promise that. And it's the only course that will guarantee that for you. So head on over to therapyinthegreatoutdoors.com. You can also go to contigoapproach.com, but I have tried to make everything available at therapyinthegreatoutdoors.com to make it easy to find all of the resources there in one place for you. That's it for today. Get outdoors, connect, reflect, and enjoy the business and practice of therapy in the great outdoors.